Oh, oh. You know, I got the message. I got the message from Blonde. Here we go. And we can get... Okay, cool. She's here. We can start the call. Alright. So hopefully that goes through.
Hello.
Hello there. Good evening. How do you do?
I am well.
Nice.
It is a beautiful day here today.
Oh, is it? We've had some good weather lately as well.
It's almost 80 degrees. It's crazy.
Whoa, wait, how much is that in Celsius? Because you guys use Fahrenheit, so it always feels hotter.
I know that room temperature or just above is about 25 C, so it's warmer than 25 C.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's pretty hot. Yeah, that's pretty warm. 26 degrees Celsius for us, so that's pretty hot, indeed.
Oh, can you hear that?
I heard that. What was that? Sounded like music.
That was the train.
Oh, your train sounds like music. How wonderful. So
I was gonna say, is that a bother or an enhancement? So
we'll call it a feature. That way it's like
a feature.
Yeah, we'll call it a feature because therefore it's up to the viewers to decide whether it's a good or a bad thing. Enhancement is almost always good. So yeah, unfortunately, did you get the message? Rio's not feeling too well.
Yeah, I did. So
yeah,
so that's fine. Let her recoup.
Yeah. I actually didn't get otherwise I would have felt guilty in some ways anyway, because you know how we have this image that's showing up on the screen right now? Of your character. Well, it was based on Emerald because you sent me Emerald from wait, what's the anime again?
Magic Knight Rayearth.
That's the one. For some reason, when you search for her, she seems to also be part of like an anime called Tsubasa Chronicles or something. So she's like in 2 anime, from what I can see. Are you actually looking at the stream right now? Actually,
possibly.
Do you see a picture of your character sitting across the table?
I do see you there.
Okay.
I'm getting audio.
Oh, okay, yeah, just mute it on the YouTube page so that it...
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh,
right.
That's better.
okay, yeah. So that's kind of what I could whip up within like within a few hours of drawing. She's got a lot of hair. And it's really curly, so I had no chance in hell of actually getting shading done in this, so I just thought, let's do it grayscale and just make it look like it's stylized and just have one thing colored. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
That works.
Originally, if Rio was going to be here, and I didn't get it finished in time anyway, like there was going to be like Walter from Helsing sitting on the table in the middle. But yeah, fortunately.
I'm sure she'd approve.
Yeah, she requested that. She said she had an OC. But then, because of just due to a lack of time, she requested I just do Walter. So, yeah, I'll send her the sketch I have anyway so far. But anyway, how are things?
Oh, good. Like I said, beautiful day here. So we were actually outside playing for a little bit, and then it was lunchtime, and I got pushed behind because I was helping daughter with her homework. So I was like, oh crap, it's almost 3:30. So I'm like, grab the baby, change him, put him down for a nap.
Parenting hard though. Parenting.
Yeah. I was reflecting the other day with one of my coworkers is also about the same age as me and also old school anime geek. So she was saying, we were saying something about like, oh my gosh, yeah, when the kids are out of the house and we're like all by ourselves, we'll be like, oh my gosh, we'll have so much time to just do nerdy hobby crap.
yeah. It's like you put your life on hold for how many some years until they're somewhat independent, and then you can.
Because you can still do little bits of stuff, but like you can't do the whole like I'm gonna go to like 2 conventions a year, and I'm gonna make costumes for all of them, and I'm gonna make fan art, and it's there's just no time for any of that. So you have to like pick and choose and parcel out your time carefully as to where you can spend it. And it works, and the kids are a joy. I got to show Princess Tutu to my daughter last year, and I was just like,
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's an old. I've not seen that one. It's an old school one.
Slightly, I think it's from the early 2000s or mid 2000s, something like that. So I guess by this time, by anime movement of the culture standards, yeah, it's definitely on the like older scale. But it I don't know. It has kind of a nice. over, I don't want to say timeless, but it's definitely one of those ones that like takes place in a fantasy realm, and there's classical music, and of course my husband makes fun of it because he's like, yeah, a series where you can solve all your problems by dancing.
Anime's pretty good for that. You solve your problems through all sorts of unorthodox things.
Yeah, if it's not like, was it Shingeki no
Shokugeki no Soma, where it's cooking.
Shokugeki no Soma, where it's like, yeah, it's food wars, literally, and we're solving our problems by cooking.
Yeah. It can change the world. It can save the world. In fact, actually, there's like another anime that was like Shonen Jump-ish as well, where it pretty much was food, and like a whole world war was prevented by someone eating like the best food ever, and it basically stopped a world war just because the food was so good.
Snap.
Yeah, they're like, everybody must taste this.
If only that could really happen. Like, everyone's like, you know what? Let's all have hot dogs.
Yeah. I'm down. And then just everyone puts in their weapons. Yeah.
And they're like, hot dogs are good. And then someone's like, I'm gonna put mustard on mine, and they're like, blasphemy, and then suddenly the violence breaks out again.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, are any of these hot dogs vegan? What? No. Oh, and then just
vegan. What the fuck?
It was only temporary, like that one day of peace around Christmas in World War II. But
oh yeah, like that class. That was on like a Christmas special thing that I watched all the time growing up.
Oh yeah,
and it was a story, and I think it's actually a real legit story about at Christmas time, bunch of dudes, and I don't remember if it took place in Britain or somewhere else in the European war fighting theater, but like Christmas Day, everybody just kind of stopped shooting.
Yeah,
and then like
they played football and everything.
Somebody comes out and is like, hey, you want to just like chill for Christmas time? And then they all do, and then they go back to fighting each other, and I'm just like,
yeah,
God,
really
it's
sad.
Weird to be a human.
Oh yeah, it's one of those really moving stories where it's just like clearly they all didn't want to be there, but it just
Yeah,
I hear in real life after that happened, most of those people were moved to like separate areas so they wouldn't be directly fighting people they had just hung out with, sort of thing. A lot of them were moved to back lines or reposted because they realized that would probably affect their performance. Yeah, their performance would no longer be as good if you know when you've just made friends with Hans over there, and
yeah, and you're like, I don't really want to shoot Hans. I mean, so yeah, it's a bizarre thing. Every time if I ever watch that Christmas special again, which I occasionally do, every time, almost every story makes me go like, oh god, it's so sad, because it's all nostalgia. Like, I'm trying to remember the other stories that were in the collection there, but yeah, they're all very touching, and I'm like, oh man, I'm turning into my parents now because they're both so sentimental, and I'm always like, no, I'm not that sentimental, and then I watch Christmas stories that I watched growing up, and I'm just like,
breaks you. Yeah, you went in like ready, and it still manages to break you down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyways. So...
yeah. You're in a bit of a, I understand you're in a bit of a kind of tight time span at the moment. I mean, time span sounds weird. I mean,
not slightly, not too terribly much. I think if we went to hour and a half, that would probably be where I'd limit, but an hour would be great.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
That'll leave enough time for dinner and everything, and for me anyway, I mean.
Yeah. Fair enough. That's why I kind of prioritized what you wanted to talk about. Even the main reason we're all here, the film we watched. I watched yesterday. I don't know if you watched it yesterday. I know you got the Blu-ray recently.
I did.
Yes. So we'll definitely manage to fit that in, and then failing, if there's any extra time, we can throw in some of the questions and answers. But we can maybe save the whole fan service topic thing, because that was Rio's idea, until perhaps she's around for that one, so don't have to make this super long.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So yeah, you sent out an email here that was very comprehensive, really well done, by the way. I love the Roman numerals, makes it seem really academic.
I had to put in numerals because for a while it was just like line, indents, line. I was like, I gotta put numbers or something on here. So
yeah,
official.
Yeah, it looks really legit. You've done some research here. I can tell you're passionate about this. This guy's work. As I
said when I was talking to Rio yesterday, I was like, I'm a huge frickin' fangirl for this movie. So
yeah, So what is this film in question? I suppose we should probably just name it first, I guess.
So, Perfect Blue, by Satoshi Kon, who is a name that you, if you're into anime, you probably should know. Unfortunately, Satoshi Kon is no longer with us. He died in 2010 at the age of only like 46. But he did produce like a small portfolio of very interesting work, in my opinion anyway. I mean, he definitely has like a very unique vision and style that shows in the stuff that he's made. And let's see, if I want to get really into Perfect Blue, I was actually just going to see like, what's the synopsis for Perfect Blue? Or actually, did I paste that into the email?
It is in this. Yeah, it's in the email. Yep, you got one there.
Sweet. See, that's the thing. I sometimes do things so organized that I don't believe that I actually did it, and then I'm like, oh, I actually did do it. Nice.
Is this actually how you conduct yourself, like with After Dark as well? You got like this organized when you do that?
Oh, no, not nearly so much. I've got handwritten notes for everything, and everything else is just like I go look up the synopsis online, but I'll write down the notes of like when it was released, who did it, what it cross-pollinates with, just so that I have that already written down. But when I type, I feel like I don't get nearly as much of an impact as when I do it by hand. But
makes sense.
So it's a good thing I'm not a student these days, because I'd probably be expected to type everything, and then I wouldn't remember everything, and everyone would be like, "Gosh, you're really stupid," and I'm like, "No, I'm not dumb. I swear."
I sort of get what you mean with the writing things down. I still, I'm working tech, and I still bring in a notepad to work. So
yeah.
Anyway,
so so Perfect Blue was released in 1997 in Japan, but it wasn't licensed and released in the US until 1999. That was originally by Manga Entertainment. Fun fact about the Blu-ray, they actually include the original trailer by Manga Entertainment, complete with the little like manga logo with the flames around it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was just like, oh wow, the nostalgia. And I was trying to remember when I was looking at the DVD, the new Blu-ray rather, if I had seen a preview for this before I actually went out and bought it, because I don't believe I ever got it from. We actually had a Blockbuster that had some anime, and I was able to rent some of it. And this is when I was in college, so I would go over, like, grab a couple episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion or something, and it's possible that I watched something by Manga Entertainment that I rented and saw the preview for this on that, but I might not have. In any case, I was super nostalgic, so I was pretty psyched they had that in there. They also have the dub track from the original Manga Entertainment release as part of the Blu-ray as well, so I was pretty psyched about that too.
Have you watched it in both, out of curiosity? Because I know it comes with 2 dubs.
Have a what?
Have you watched it in English and in Japanese, or do you mainly just kind of go for the...
Both. But the VHS copy I had was dub, because that's all they had. So I did, when they did the re-release back in, I want to say September, it was the original subtitled Japanese language audio track, which was fine. And I did watch it. I think I watched it again in the dub, but then I watched back to look at some of the sub tracks, because I was like, what were the differences here? Because I actually think they did a pretty good job with the dub. It involves a voice actress as the protagonist, Mima Kirigoe. She was voiced by, I can't remember her. I want to say Ruby Marlowe. I could be wrong. She, I believe, also did the voice of Miyaka in Fushigi Yugi, which came out maybe not the same time, but it also came out like in the 90s and then was licensed in the late 90s. And Wendy Lee also as a supporting voice actress, and she's still actively involved.
Yeah, she's quite big right now, actually.
So she's still around. She did a supporting part, and I think Steve Bloom might have been in this. There's also Sparky Thornton, like a lot of people that you'll see still kicking around on the supporting casts of various things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I was psyched about that. And the actual plot of the film, I didn't know this, I think, until, I don't know, probably when they did the big re-release this year, or rather last year, that this was based on some novels, like suspense novels.
Yeah, that was new to me when you mentioned that in the email. That was... Yeah.
And they only just came over and got licensed, I think, last year, or maybe the year before. Actually, I have one right next to me. It's actually part 2. Perfect Blue, Awaken from a Dream is the second part, written by Yoshikazu Takeuchi, who also wrote the first one, which was called Perfect Blue Complete Metamorphosis. Let's see, that one, it's pretty old. Here's the original one. Come on, number, jump out at my eyeballs. Okay, I'm looking for it, but I don't see it right now. I don't know why. Oh, first printing April 2018. Okay, so yeah, it was last year.
Okay.
So yep, and I got both of them as birthday presents, so that was kind of cool. But the story in Perfect Blue, the motion picture by Satoshi Kon, it's quite different, honestly, from the novels. The second novel set actually seems to be a bunch of short stories about obsession and fame, whereas the first one is basically a big long narrative, and it's quite different because instead of it being a pop idol undergoing kind of a crisis of identity and weird crap happening, it's a very straight ahead stalker suspense story for the most part.
Right. So that they're more between the two books, they're more thematically linked than they are actual like narrative wise overarching.
Yeah, and as I was reading the second one, I'm like, oh, I'm seeing some of the flavors from the film in this, even though it's just a string of short stories all put together. There's definitely some flavor in there, and I think the author originally tried to adapt it for the film that Satoshi Kon ended up kind of like retouching and then kind of making his own. So I can kind of see where they were going with it, but I really like the way that he tied everything together. By having some, because there's also actresses, I think, in the second collection. They're not just all idols, and it's a slightly same but slightly different industry. Like, it's all about being famous and being front facing and having a relationship with your fans, but changes happen.
I will get into that as well in a bit, actually, because there's, idols themselves have, kind of really picked up over the years. I mean, they even have the AI versions you get nowadays that are like these CG characters. And that kind of the relationship is similar, but they say pop star a lot of the time in this one, but like idol itself has like become its own really huge thing at this point.
Yeah, it's really its own thing. And when I watched the film originally back in probably 99 or 2000, somewhere in that vicinity, I was like, what is this? She's supposed to be famous, but she has this tiny apartment and lives like a normal person. So at the time I didn't get it. And then later on, I'm like, oh, okay. I think I'm understanding it.
Yeah, it's considered a bit more like somewhere in between. It's more like a mascot as opposed to like a full celebrity. But nowadays, idols are so picked up that it's like you really can get like celebrity level, money out of it.
Right. It's like you're famous, but you're not the kind of famous that would keep you from being able to go shop for your own groceries. That's kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. So
it's like it's very niche-y. It seems like there's lots of different idols and lots of different people to be fans of those idols, and a lot of times they're following them from their like very, very early ingenue years through their careers, and of course not all of them continue on for like a decade plus. So there's probably kind of just a cycling in and out of them all the time.
Yeah, it's like a factory. So, they go in from that. It's a good sort of, I guess, get initial exposure that they try to hopefully metamorphise into another sort of into another sort of
I see what
career.
You did there.
Yeah. Well, I just I'm looking at your email, so like, oh, there you go. Try and change it to something like a bit more prolonged, that isn't so much like a fat, because like typically these idol groups, they kind of come and go like little fads. Like there's this idol group and then this idol group becomes popular, but you want to have a long lasting career, you got to go into something that's kind of longer, like a acting career, for instance. I don't know.
Yeah, you might become a model, you might become an actress, you might, I don't know, branch out entirely and become an entertainment manager. Who knows? But it's an interesting industry that I've learned a lot about since, and I shouldn't say like intimately about. I've understood it a lot better in the intervening decades at this point. Just because I've absorbed more Japanese culture to the point where I'm like, oh, okay, I think I understand this better. But at the time, I was just sort of like scratching my head. Not for very long, fortunately, but. The whole idea. I mean,
like, unfortunately, because I'm not in the thick of it, because I'm not all the way over there in Japan, a lot of the news that does get to me is typically the bad news. The horror stories to do with like them being screwed over by their talent agencies. The contracts being really unreasonable, and then there's of course the fans in and of themselves that can be a bit possessive.
Yeah, so Yes, exactly. There's very much, and that seems to be one of the things about idolhood, is that it's not just about being talented and being an entertainer, because you generally are, but it's not so much about that, and it's very much about like selling your image and personality and a sort of facsimile of a relationship with fans.
Yeah, definitely.
Which can be really sweet and touching, but also kind of sad and potentially dangerous.
Yes, definitely. As this film explores, actually.
Exactly, and that's pretty on. I feel like that's very much on brand for Satoshi Kon overall. Is this sort of like duality and the conflict between the real and the illusory, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So if we want to just flat out read the synopsis for this,
Okay.
do you want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep, sure.
Okay. So I feel like I should adopt the the super serious trailer voice.
Go for it. Go.
Okay, because that's what I remember honestly from the original trailer. It was like Mima Kirigoe was a pop idol.
I'm surprised they were able to pronounce her name so well there. If they did.
I think they made the R a little bit Mima Kirigoe.
Oh wow, still pretty good, but yeah.
It's not bad. It's not. They actually that is one of the things that was good about the dub, was that they didn't attempt. I mean, for one, they didn't change it to be like Mary Carafun or something.
Carafun.
And then Carafun, I don't know where that came from. They didn't try to make it like Mary Smith or something like that. They kept everybody Japanese, and they actually pronounced the names not terrible. Like the R was a little bit more. It wasn't Mima Kirigoe. It was like Mima Kirigoe, and I was like, oh, they did it. Good job for them. It just reminds me of the preview for Princess Mononoke back in the day. I think the official trailer said Mononoke, and I was just like,
oh. I think when I was younger, I used to say Mononoke as well. When I was. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was just sort of silly. My sister and I were sitting there with our like weeb rage at age, I don't know, 20 something and teen something, and then we started making fun of it and being like Princess Monkey, and then it became like Piss Ass Monkey.
Piss Ass.
And then we started calling it that, and we're like, is this disrespectful or is it just a weird inside joke? I don't know. I'm sorry, very tangential.
Yeah, it's fine. We tend to do that on live streams. It's even more okay on live streams, given that there is no time limit, on streams compared to when we're on the Pulse website. So, tangent away if you feel like it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll jump off the tangent and back onto the track.
Sure.
Reading the synopsis. So, rising pop star Mima has quit singing to pursue a career as an actress and model, but her fans aren't ready to see her go. Encouraged by her managers, Mima takes on a recurring role on a popular TV show when suddenly her handlers and collaborators begin turning up murdered. I'm just imagining them actually walking up and having like a knife, be like, "Oh, I died today."
Turned up, yeah, that's right. They showed up with her already dead, actually, just the corpse mangle. Yep.
Harboring feelings of guilt and haunted by visions of her former self, Mima's reality and fantasy meld into a frenzied paranoia. As her stalker closes in person and online, the threat he poses is more real than even Mima knows. Dun, 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 dun.
Yes.
So there you go. That is the general thing, and you already watched the movie, so you know.
Yep, it's pretty fresh in my mind, and it's one of those movies that sticks with you at least for quite a little bit of time after you've watched it. So I'm still it's still processing a lot of like, okay, did this happen, or was this real? Oh, what if I look at it this way? That's the mode I'm in at the moment with it. But yeah,
it definitely is one that it might leave you kind of scratching your head and being like, wait a minute, was this part real or was that part fake, or was it partially fake, or was it a hallucination? And I feel like that's part of the intention of Satoshi Kon and anybody else who was involved with this, was that sort of blurring those lines between what really happened and what was imagined to have happened. And I know that I saw one review of this basically saying that like, yeah, I didn't really like this that much. There's only so many times that you can like fake out the audience and be like, oh, she just woke up from a dream. It was just a dream, before you get kind of pissed off about it. And I was like, fair enough, but I was down with it. I
actually thought it was pretty effective because each time they did do the fake out, it actually wasn't like they were just trying to. It wasn't just a loop. They were changing enough with each cycle that it was like, oh, this presented a totally new angle of seeing it. My favorite being when like it started to really blur the line between the TV show the drama she was recording and what was reality. And I think it was really effective the way it was like take 2, take 1. You know, I was like, I see what she did there.
Or just being like, and cut. It's like, what? Wait, what?
And then like the big twist, like when we get to spoiler territory a little bit later, makes you rethink the entire show again. Where there's an entire different lens you could view the entire movie, which is we'll get into that. But the next
Just
point.
to-
Sorry,
you go ahead.
No, you go. No, you go out.
All right. So I did put it down a whole bunch of stuff about Satoshi Kon and the stuff that he did. Because this was his debut film. This was his first film that he directed. And it's funny if you actually look back at it wasn't IMDb, I think I looked at. I think I just looked at like a Wikipedia entry that shows like he did Perfect Blue and then he went back to like just doing like key animation and stuff for other series. And I'm just like, that's so weird to me right now. It's just like he has such a good filmography.
Yeah, it's so good for a
him.
first attempt. I'm wondering, like, so did he have like a background in film at all before this? Do you know?
He did have a bunch of roles in the anime industry. Previously, I'd say the biggest one, I think I made a note of that in the first chunk, was that he had previously written, like he scripted, and then also did the art direction for the segment of Katsuhiro Otomo's Memories called Magnetic Rose. And if you haven't seen Otomo's Memories, it's a really good watch, and it's, I think, just a three-part. I think it's a 3-part, like mini. It's a film, but it's like mini stories inside of the film. And Magnetic Rose to me is like, wow. The other one's kind of like a gag story, and then another one has a very dramatic. And apparently, also he had done some work. I didn't know this either until I went looking up his manga work. He actually debuted a manga called Toriko, not to be confused with the modern day.
I was thinking
series Toriko. But he also did, one that was called Tropic of the Sea. I hadn't heard of that one before. World Apartment Horror sounded vaguely familiar. Those are both from 1990 and 1991, respectively. And then he worked on, he also did Seraphim, which then has a number behind it, that he actually collaborated with Mamoru Oshii on. That was in 94. And then he did Opus in 1995 and 1996. But he also had uncredited work working on Akira.
Oh, really? Whoa, the big one. That's a big one.
I know. So I was just like, whoa. And I guess that's probably how he ended up kind of hooking up, maybe otherwise, with Katsuhiro Otomo for Memories. So there's a little behind-the-scenes thing, I think, on the DVD that we had seen of Memories that actually, I think, has Satoshi Kon and some of the other people who are working under Otomo who are like, this is our, like, really good hand up into this industry, and we're super excited to work here. And I'm like, yeah, you should. So yeah, he has this amazing filmography, but he went back to just working on, regular old anime stuff after he did his debut direction project of Perfect Blue. And actually it was a few more years before he had another film, which was Millennium Actress in 2002. Apparently, Paprika, which came out in 2006, was something that he tried to kind of get rolling right after Perfect Blue, but the studio he was working with went under, so that kind of created that gap between Perfect Blue in 97 and Millennium Actress in 2002. But then after that, Tokyo Godfathers came out in 2003, Paranoia Agent came out in 2004, Paprika came out in 2006. So he had all this work that kind of like rolled one after another, but not until like the early 2000s.
Yeah, it's quite close succession to be making full films as well. They're all, actually, Paranoia Agents, is that a series? I think?
Yes, Paranoia Agents is a series, yeah.
I see.
Also a really good series that very much plays with the whole reality versus illusion and perception, and it's, oh wow, I really like it. I know some people, I think it's very to taste though, because I think it was Alga, we were chit-chatting on the banter on the Discord about, he was like, yeah, I didn't love Paranoia Agent. I'm like, I loved it so much.
Yeah. I'll need to, the sad thing is that Perfect Blue is the first thing I've heard of this guy. I know he's a legend, but Perfect Blue is the first thing I've actually genuinely watched from him, so I still don't really have much of an opinion on everything else here.
Yeah, and it's very different, I'd say, from a lot of anime too, because it's all very cinematic. It's very, this could have been live action, but they didn't make it live action. And I think all to the good, because it really gives an extra dimension, especially for Satoshi Kon and his whole reality versus non-reality thing. It gives an extra dimension of non-reality and the ability to convey that visually. It's harder to do. I mean, I think nowadays you can probably do it easier with CG and everything.
Yeah.
But I think especially at the time that Perfect Blue came out, I'm like, I can imagine this being done live action, but it wouldn't have been nearly as cool.
Yeah. The effects, he takes advantage of the animation medium to enhance his message and stuff and his direction. So
yeah, so it's really cool. And apparently, I guess Perfect Blue was adapted into a live action. A live action film, I guess, or a film for TV.
All right.
Yeah, and let's see, did I make a note of that? Maybe I didn't. I don't know, but I did look it up. There's also a TV series, but actually, it wasn't Perfect Blue, based on the novel by Yoshikazu Takeuchi. It was somebody else's work that was called Perfect Blue, and I'm like, that's not confusing at all.
Could have called it Imperfect Blue or Perfect Dark Blue. Or alternate, I don't know. Cerulean.
Imperfect indigo.
Yeah, indigo. Yes, exactly. Imperfect cyan.
Yes. So yeah, that's the general gist of it. And I mentioned earlier about the manga entertainment trailer. I either saw the trailer and thought that sounds neat, and then happened to see it at Ye Old Suncoast Video. Which I believe I'd mentioned previously on After Dark, that that was one of the places where you could get anime along with like Sam Goody or whatever, all these brick and mortar music and DVD and a few other things. I guess they had collectibles at our Suncoast as well, but like these brick and mortar media stores that just you don't see that much anymore. So I think if I didn't see a trailer for this, I think I just saw it sitting there on shelves for a long time and was like, this looks neat, I'm gonna buy it. And then watched it and was like, wow. And I actually remember watching it at the time. I probably was a sophomore in college, so like 19 years old or so.
Yeah.
And I took this home I think over summer, I think it was summer break, and my sister's 3.5 years younger than me. And her friends were all there. She was into anime, and so were some of her friends. So we're like, let's do like an anime watching party. So we got like Perfect Blue, I think Vampire Hunter D.
Oh yeah.
And I don't remember if we watched Grave of the Fireflies at the same time, but like this very mismatched. Yeah. None of those match. None of these things go together. But the so my parents, this is one of those things. I remember Welltall talking about this, like his girlfriend or whoever would always walk in during like a weird sex scene of whatever movie. He's like, no, you're not what you're thinking. So they walk in during that scene.
I think I know which scene. Yeah. Well, there's two scenes I could think of, but I think I know which one.
Yes.
Yeah.
The main one is the drama that she's cast in, where it's essentially it's a rape scene.
Yes, that one.
And my parents kind of walk in and they're like, "What are you watching?" And I'm like, "It's a staged thing. It's not real." It's just like shifting my eyes around.
It's double not real because it's also a cartoon.
Yes, it's double not real. So that was pretty funny. But I just ended up finding it. It was just around at the time. Manga Entertainment distributed a lot of stuff, and that was just kind of how I came about getting my hands on this one. And yeah, it was in VHS copy, dub only, like you did back then.
Yeah.
And it was good times. I really enjoyed it, and it's strange to me actually. I don't think any of these other things that he did. I think I'm trying to remember if Millennium Actress. I'm pretty sure. I think I was aware of Millennium Actress because, somebody on a discussion forum or something had mentioned it. And actually, Millennium Actress is my least favorite, even though it's very good. it's a little bit the story seems a little bit more grounded, and I like a way more mind fuckery, honestly. So I like and actually Tokyo Godfathers is pretty grounded too, but that's a little bit more funny rather than dramatic, so I enjoy that one a lot as well. But all the times that something new of his would come out, I would kind of be peripherally aware of it, and I wouldn't even hear his name attached to it. I would look at them and go, oh, this looks really cool, and then it would be like at the very, very end, it'd be like, by Satoshi Kon. I'm like, well, then I'm definitely in.
So you started to become a name in the industry you kind of really recognized immediately as something like you check out no matter what sort of thing?
Yeah, and I think it wasn't until Paprika that I heard somebody being like very front of it, being like, Satoshi Kon's newest movie, it's Paprika. And then I saw the trailer, I was like, this definitely looks like something out of his wheelhouse, and I am in for it. So, yeah.
So out of everything you've seen from him, do you have a favorite?
I mean, Perfect Blue definitely goes up there, but that's primarily because of nostalgia factor.
Right.
If I had, I'd say secondary to that, Paprika I really liked a lot too.
Right. I almost got mixed up between the two because they both, well, I guess just the cover of it. I knew that they had like a female lead that's like, I guess a sort of reminiscent. He has a similar aesthetic the way he draws the female character, I guess. So that I kind of
both. Is it well, yeah, Paprika is the name of the alter ego, and it's is it Atsuki? I know one of the guys calls her Achan during the course of the movie. She looks very different, but her alter ego is a bit Mima Kirigoe-esque because she's got the short, flippy hair, and like the virtual Mima, she kind of like airily skips around. So there's some similarities there. Yep.
Yeah.
So that'd probably be my secondary favorite, not based on strict nostalgia.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yep.
Cool.
So you came into this not really knowing much about the film at all. So did you have any kind of expectations coming in, or
well,
or you were just like, well, this is happening?
Well, I just heard a bit of reputation going in, because I knew of Satoshi Kon and that his stuff tends to be a bit more abstract, a little bit more art housey, I guess. And like one of the more recent things I noticed in terms of like Perfect Blue was you mentioned the other day you'd watched Super Eye Patch Wolf's video on what's its name, Junji Ito collection.
Yes.
He also had a thumbnail saying like Perfect Blue is scary and here's why, or stuff like that, right? I didn't watch that video because I didn't want to be spoiled for it. But at the same time, I was like, okay, well, that was my my early exposure. Where I was like, okay, I guess something really fucked up happens in this because his thumbnail is like her with blood on her, I guess.
Yes, that's one of like the promotional images you'll see a lot for this film is like Mima's face with like her hand across it with smears of blood kind of going down from her fingertip.
Yeah, it was that moment where it's like when it happened in the movie, it's like, oh, there's that thumbnail, there's the scene. So yeah, my expectation was like, okay, this is probably going to be a mindfuck somehow, even before looking at the blurb. As for impressions, I had an overall very positive impression of the film. It has good rewatch value to it. It is something that I feel like if I had time, I would like to just like take screenshots and then make, you know, one of those things that detectives do where they have like a bunch of pictures on the wall and they link them with string.
Oh yeah.
And just be like, okay, right, this scene here happened here. She mentioned something she couldn't have known, and this happened. Right, we can arrange it this way, and then just build up as so many different timelines for how things could turn out. You know, it really feels like you can do that. And what's really good about it, I found, is that it works in a traditional sort of storytelling sense, where the vanilla ending it gives you sort of explains everything fine enough as it is. You don't have to interpret extra stuff. It kind of still tells a coherent story-ish, you know, based on the twist of who done it. But then also, if you look at the other stuff that doesn't necessarily fit in cleanly into that, you're like, well, that could have been the case, but there's easily ways you can twist it. So I think it's like, if somebody wants to get into, let's say, YouTube videos, like essays, like just dissecting anime, I'd say like everybody should like start out, just watch Perfect Blue and then come up with some conclusion, because there's just as much evidence for any sort of conclusion you have for it.
There's definitely some ambiguity there that you could interpret alternatively to what seems like the straight ahead ending.
I just like the escalation, especially with how it starts off with like a Power Rangers like Sentai stage show, where it's like we go from innocent to still fairly innocent with idols as well. Because the thing about idols, and they touch upon this in the film, is like there's always a sense that, unlike with other celebrities, they're not expected to have relationships. In fact, I think it's in their contracts many times.
Yeah,
they're not allowed to have.
Not uncommon.
Yeah. So it's still fairly pure, and then it goes to like slowly, just like a spiral down, and this is kind of compounded with the direction, because then suddenly it eases you in a very nice sort of pace where you almost feel like you're living her routine for a bit, and it's like, oh, well, that's a bit odd, but okay, that's fine. Everything's there are odd elements to it from the beginning, but you're kind of still grounded, and then when the wake up scenes happen, it's like, oh my god, holy shit. And I'm wondering if this is on purpose, like, because you have the Blu-rays and you've seen multiple versions. Do you see like almost like, especially at the start, like the sense that the camera feels like the frame feels like it's shaking a little bit?
Yeah, that's true, and I think that actually just might be part of the artifact of how it was made in '97, or leading up to '97. Because you watch stuff now and shit is smooth. Like, everything I think is done. It's done on computers and stuff, so there's no camera taking the shots of the cells that could shake. And I remember watching. I think it was just in the first little segment where it goes from the Power Rangers-esque show preceding the Cham, that's the name of the group, concert, you've got like the three dudes just sitting by like a big tree planter thing and talking, and one of the dudes, when he's talking, like his whole body kind of twitches a little bit, not in a way that's intentional.
His mouth isn't really talking, it's just like they just kind of shake him. They shake some of the characters when they talk.
It almost feels like it's like stick figure theater.
Puppet pals.
Which I think is, it's just like an artifact of the time that it was made, in the hand-drawn era. I saw a video that was actually about Vampire Hunter D a couple months back, and I was like, oh my gosh, Vampire Hunter D, not the original, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, which came out in the, was that the late 90s too, like 99 or 2000? It was around then, but it was one of the last like big hand-drawn dealios, and at the time I actually went and saw that in theaters, and it was amazing. And it's still amazing, but when I look at it now, I'm like, oh wow, you can see that this is very well done, but it is hand drawn. Like there's a certain grit to it that's still there.
Because I did suspect. Sorry, yeah. There's definitely.
I was just saying it has some grit. The Perfect Blue, it definitely has some in its production.
Yeah, I mean, because I suspected that was probably the case. That's the reason why it had that sort of shaky feel to it. But I also was like, because I was immediately like, art house mode. Okay, you have to dissect everything. Everything's intentional. So I thought, what if the shaky camera is like, because like part of the thing is she's being stalked, right? And like, fans are being overbearing on her. So what if we, from the camera's perspective, are one of those stalkers? Oh my god, like I was immediately like, it's like maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't. But I was like, just ready to jump on any sort of sign that something was going on. And my friend, who I was actually watching it with a friend yesterday, who's seen it before, so he was kind of like chuckling at how much like I was theorizing as we went. I was like, oh my god, I think she did it, I think he did it, oh my god. Wait, the stalker hasn't shown up for at least 5 scenes, that must mean that she's in a different world. I was like making all these sorts of like assumptions, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, it gets a little Inception-y where you're like, wait, is it real, or is it a dream, or is it it can get a little trippy on rewatches, especially. So it's interesting. It's an interesting thing. I know some people kind of, like I said, there was that one review that was like, I kind of felt like I was getting jerked around. I'm like, I'm in for the trip. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're, I mean, it's I guess it is like one of those things where it's like it's not for everybody. It's not one of those. I wouldn't say it's like. There's plenty of good anime out there that I really like. That I'm just like, it's great. I love it, but I couldn't possibly recommend it for everybody. It's similar to like something like I suppose an anime that's kind of like that would be. Have you heard of Night is Short, Walk On Girl?
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, have you heard of Tatami Galaxy at all?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same art style as that. The anime is entirely made in Flash, but it's like this really trippy night that follows this really optimistic girl as she goes on like this biggest night out of her teen years. She just goes drinking nonstop, and stuff.
I did see a preview, actually. Now that I think of it, yes, I did see a preview for that. It didn't immediately resonate, but I saw that and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of neat.
Yeah, I really like that film, but at the same time, I couldn't possibly recommend it to everybody because I bet some people would be like, the talking and the dialogue is all like pretentious and shit, you know.
I was gonna say when I looked at it, I was like, this is very art housey looking. Like I have to be in that headspace.
It's a mood. Yeah, there's like a mood for it that you got to be in.
I mean, Perfect Blue is very much similar in that respect of like you have to be up for a mindfuckery psychological drama.
Yeah.
And it's not something to watch where you're like, I just want to feel uplifted and light and happy.
Yeah. But I think also visually wise, I was also craving something like this lately because on Anime Pulse, I was doing a little bit of like a binge of like older shows for a bit, and I was looking, I did some reviews of like Battle Angel Alita or Gundam, which I think was like an 80s anime and such. And I was like, well, I really miss anime that looks like this, where it is clearly hand-drawn, the backgrounds are clearly very detailed this way, you know? And so I was missing something that had a bit more of that old sort of feel to it. So I think it wasn't even just the type of story, but I was just looking for something that had that different, less digital look. Yeah, exactly. Less digital, more analog, that's right. So, yeah, Opinions is good. It's not 100% like my taste. I could easily, like, if I was going objective in terms of how well it's crafted, if I was on Anime Pulse, I probably would give it a download now. If I was going just only off my own taste, it would be a high crackers, but you know, somewhere in between would be like what I would give it. Probably, I don't know. I probably would give it a download now actually, because I just would recommend it. But yeah.
It's, as far as anime fandom goes, I'm like, well, if you're like a film person and you're interested in stylistic variations and you like a wide variety of different genres, I'd be like, yeah, check out Satoshi Kon's stuff. It's at least try one. And I probably wouldn't recommend Perfect Blue. I'd probably recommend something like Paprika, depending on the person. But this is actually one of those funny discussions you can have, because back when I first started getting into anime, like things were starting to branch out a lot. But people who were older than me, they tended to have gotten into anime because of like Gundam or science fiction, like that kind of stuff. So a lot of people were like, oh, if they liked science fiction, chances were good they probably liked some anime that fell into that genre. But about then, like, things were really exploding. So you had not only that, but you had like dark fantasy series and alternate world series and comedies and and then you get into the slice of life and stuff like that. So it's its own genre. Like at the time, let's say in the late 90s when I was just getting into anime, people were like, oh yeah, Sailor Moon, Pokemon, big eyes, and occasionally there's tentacles. Not in Pokemon or Sailor Moon.
Of course, no. Well, if you look in the right places, I'm sure the internet will serve you. Yeah.
So they would talk, that would be basically it. And I remember, I think I actually did, like, as for my public speaking class, I actually talked about anime.
Oh yeah.
Basically talking explicitly about how there's lots of different kinds of things, and it isn't all just, you know, Pokemon and Sailor Moon and so on and so forth. Even though there are some common themes, and like you were talking about, like isekai series are such a hot thing these days and have been for the last few years. And it's like there's, you know, fits and starts of various genres that really explode and proliferate, and that would be kind of how you might characterize the anime industry at the time. But it's really just a popular dimension. It's like saying, oh, all films is vampire romance now. And it's like, no, there's like a million different kinds of films. Just because Twilight happened.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that's the only thing out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just willing to look beyond, you know, what gets the mainstream attention, there's extra niche ones, even in the same genre. So... Though I do feel like you know, because I watch a bunch of the stuff that comes out, I kind of have to for the show. I do feel like there's a gap at the moment for something that's a bit more psychological like this, because I definitely would count this as psychological. And I feel like there should be more of something like that, because a lot of times when shows try to be psychological and, you know, have characters go through traumatic experience, it just kind of comes across like they're just trying to be really edgy and trying to be shock value-ish, you know? Yeah, and I get that problem.
When I was talking to my husband the other night about it was actually because of the Video Game Pulse crossover that you did the other day, because I never got to hear it because I only dipped in for a little bit to listen, and then I had to dip back out again. But you had Made in Abyss on your agenda.
Oh yes, that's right. And
a friend of mine had recommended it, and I watched. A couple friends actually had recommended. They're like, "Oh yeah, it's really good." Da, da, da. And I watched some of it. I'm like, "Okay, I'll give it a few more episodes of chance." And now I'm like halfway through, and I'm like, I can see where somebody might like this, but I don't care at all. Like,
Oh yeah.
what's going on? It's beautifully drawn. Oh my gosh, the backgrounds. It's gorgeous.
Oh yeah. No,
But
production values are great. Mm-hmm.
but I don't buy the world building, and I
Oh.
don't care about the characters that much. And that's not a bang on the series, because I think that there's a place for everything within the medium. But like, I'm like, I just don't. It's not hitting with me. It's not hitting. So oh well.
Yeah.
But he mentioned too. He was saying part of it that bothers me. He doesn't like the cute character design.
Yeah. I can understand that being a bit off-putting and such, but you know, one thing I would say kudos to them is it's not, again, with the whole edgy thing, it's not done in the same way of something like Mahou Shoujo's Sight, where I feel like the entire reason where that show looked so moe was just to make you feel even more sorry for what's going to happen to all these girls. Whilst in, are we still connected? Hello? Uh-oh. Oh, this is a bit awkward. Is my internet still running? Is the stream still on? Crap. Yeah, audio's not coming through on desktop audio. Oh dear. I'm gonna try refreshing the call. I'm going to see if I can. Hello? Is this working better? Hello? Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh no. I don't think you missed most of. Oh, by the way, just FYI, I'm not sure how much of it you've missed, Black Magic. To be fair, 10 minutes of it, it took us a little bit of time to get started at the beginning. There was a bit of a delay. So, I don't know how much longer we will be going. Maybe we'll go a bit more longer. But, first it starts with trying to get Innocuous back. Can you hear me right now? If you can, please type or something. I don't know. Not sure if I should finish the point I was making.
Hey, there you are.
Oh, hello. Whoa, hello. Could you hear me the whole time?
I lost you for like a minute there.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Well, as long as you're back, that's all that matters. That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah. I
don't know what happened then.
I don't know. It said that you were still online and stuff, and yeah, I don't know. Stream's still on, so I guess that's what matters. So that's fine. Yeah.
Well, blip.
I do feel like, in contrast to something like I was saying, Mahou Shoujo's Sight also had the cutesy designs, but really bad things happening to the characters. That one came across just like it was only really playing, and they played up every bad scenario that they had to them to the extreme, just to like really hammer into the ground like how unfortunate these situations are. Whilst I think with at least with Made in Abyss, I don't feel like they had the art style, at least just to try to emphasize the really fucked up shit that happens towards the end. And so I give them that kudos, but I can understand if it's a bit off-putting because the chibi style does seem a bit out of place with what happens a bit later as well. It could. So. It's a bit choppy still. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, just a little bit. I can mostly hear what you're saying, but I'm missing like every fifth word maybe. But yeah, the overall, like I was like, yeah, this is fine, but he particularly was like, yeah, it's just like Higurashi again with all the it's really cute and then it's really super effed up, and I'm like, yeah, Higurashi was fun to have said I saw it, but it definitely was not something that was like up my alley, like, ooh, this is so great, I love it. I was like, well, I watched the first series, don't feel any need to watch the rest of it, but that's okay.
Oh, but I also kind of agree with you when you say about like not immediately sinking in with the characters or feeling, because it's a very simple sort of relationship dynamic they have between Rico and Reg. You know, they both just want to go on an adventure, and it's like, not much else beyond that. So I can understand there's not much to cut your teeth on for the first 6 episodes. So yeah, I can understand that.
Yep. Anyways, though, yeah, there's different kinds of psychological and suspense things and different ways it can be communicated, and story told and everything like that. But yeah, that's why there's so many different kind of styles in the universe, is so that everybody can have a little flavor of their own.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather have more of a thing than less of it, because you can still pick and choose. So, what to watch and what not to.
Indeedly.
So
Yes.
Anyways, Perfect Blue. You wanted to mention The Accused, Requiem for a Dream, and Black Swan? It says here.
Yes. So in the movie, excuse me while I shift my legs. So in the film, there's a bit where for anybody, and I'm sure there's not like cajillions of people, but if anybody comes back to listen to this later on, the if you haven't seen Perfect Blue, the general gist of it is that Mima Kirigoe goes from being a pop idol into an actress's career, but she's still kind of a newbie, and she's guesting on the series, and things are going okay. Her manager's trying to get her more lines and a bigger role because that plays out better for everybody financially. And then it turns out that the scriptwriter has given her kind of a juicy part in the story, but it involves her character suffering a mental breakdown after she is sexually assaulted in a strip club. Like, she's an actual like exotic dancer, and then she is raped, and it's bad. And nobody has a good time. And they're trying to convince her basically about how this is like, like this is one of her managers is like, no, this is not good, we're gonna get this changed, she don't have to do this. And the other one's like, but hey, this is like a big opportunity, if she wants a bigger role, she's got to do this. And he's like, yeah. And she finally says, you know what, I want to try to do it. And he's like, yeah, Jody what's her name did that, and it worked out really good. And that was in reference to The Accused.
I was wondering what he meant. Okay.
Yeah. Which I'm trying to remember if I think the movie came out in the 80s. I actually saw it on like broadcast on TV many years afterwards, probably when I was in college. And I was like, oh, this is that movie. And then later on, actually, I saw Perfect Blue. I guess I was a teenager then. I saw Perfect Blue, and they referenced it. I'm like, oh, they're talking about that movie that was really messed up. And interestingly enough, it kind of came at a time in her career, Jodie Foster's career, when she had done some roles as a younger very like teenage actress, went away to school on sabbatical, and then came back. And this was one of the roles she was cast in, and other actresses were turning it down because they thought it would be too exploitative. But she ended up getting an Academy Award for Best Actress for the performance.
Wow.
Meanwhile, nothing else about the film was actually nominated for any awards, just her performance.
Wow.
And it does involve I wouldn't say graphic, but it's definitely a disturbing scene of her being assaulted by, like, or at least, the story is that she is assaulted by multiple men, while a whole bunch of other men are actually witnessing it and like egging them on, and it's super effed up. So not too far off in a way from what kind of happens in the it's called Double Bind, I believe, is the series that Mima is now starring in, as this little bit part that then kind of gets elevated because she ends up being kind of a crucial character. But to be fitting with that thing, she has to do this part. And so then they're talking about Jodie Foster, she did it and it was really good for her career and everything. So they referenced that. The other bit, Requiem for a Dream, Darren Aronofsky supposedly bought the rights to Perfect. I heard this from a couple of different sources, that he actually bought the rights to Perfect Blue in terms of like if he wanted to adapt it into live action in the US or something like that, just so that he could like lift the scene from. And if you've seen Requiem for a Dream, there's a scene where an actress is essentially in a bathtub. She's kind of got her she's sort of folded up on herself with her face down on the water, and I'm like mimicking it right now. And then she just like yells into the water, and the camera is actually under the water looking at her with like the air streaming up over her face as she's screaming. And that was actually first in Perfect Blue. And it's almost shot for shot. I'm sure you could find this on the YouTubes these days. But and actually Aronofsky supposedly like struck up a friendship with Satoshi Kon on this base, and they must have had some kind of relationship, because even if it was just a professional admiration, etc. kind of thing, because he actually wrote, after Satoshi Kon passed, he actually wrote like a piece about him after he died, like just being like he was a great filmmaker and he did this and da 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 da. Although I saw in other accounts that he didn't buy the rights, he just like was like, oh, it's an homage. um, and then later on, Darren Aronofsky did Black Swan, which I feel like nobody even really barely remembers anymore. But at the time when it came out, I heard a little bit of a hubbub because some people were like, yeah, this plot reminds me of Perfect Blue, like a whole lot. This came out in 2010. And essentially, it's Natalie Portman. If you like Natalie Portman, go watch that movie if you haven't already, I guess. She plays a ballerina in a big professional company, and they're going to do a production of Swan Lake.
Yeah.
And she is a very meticulous and well-controlled dancer, but she doesn't seem to have a lot of the raw emotional passion or whatever that the company director is looking for in the person who is going to be cast as the Swan, because the Swan doesn't only play a white swan who's innocent and good, but also the Black Swan who's kind of seductive and bad girl. So it's like a double role.
Yeah.
And she really wants to get the role. She doesn't really get it, and then they're gonna double cast it with her and one other dancer, and the pressure of trying to conform to this role and then also to hopefully play both roles ends up kind of sending her into a weird breakdown space, and things get weird, and that's basically it. So it isn't by any stretch close to the plot of Perfect Blue, other than that there's a young woman and she's trying to grow professionally, and she starts tripping out and seeing another vision of herself, and there's some stabbings that happen. That's about it. That's the only similarity. I would say it's only skeletally similar. So I'll give them the benefit. Absolutely.
It sounds like it's a lot more comprehensible to keep track of, at least. Black Swan.
I'd say so. It's a little less was it a dream?
Because
it becomes very clear. There's actually a bit. This is probably what people have glommed onto mostly about the film, is that there's kind of a fairly mild lesbian love scene between Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis, who plays the passionate dancer. And the next morning, they have a night out, a girls' night out, and then and what she thinks happens is that she brings her back. Natalie Portman's character brings her back to her apartment, and they hole up in her room, even though her mom's like, "You've got practice tomorrow," and then they make out and sexy things happen. And then the next day, she's talking to her at practice, and she's like, hey, you didn't she just basically mentions this whole thing of yeah, when did you leave this morning? And she's like, what are you talking about? She's like, but you slept over last night. She's like, no, I didn't. I went home with that guy named Tom over there. And then of course when you start seeing images of yourself elsewhere, and you're like, what's going on? What's happening? It's generally it's pretty much it's an illusion, but you're trying to figure out. And during the climax of the movie, there's did I kill somebody or did I not kill somebody? That's about as ambiguous as it gets, because it seems no, that didn't really happen, but then also something worse might have happened. No. I don't know. It's an interesting movie for sure. It's worth seeing once, I'd say. But
okay, yeah, I've been meaning to at some point or another. I just I guess similar to what you were mentioning, it kind of keeps dropping off my radar, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to watch that, and then I forget about it before I go and watch it. It's just one of those.
Yeah, I think I watched it not that long after it, within a couple of years of it coming out. I think I watched it via the Blockbuster mail, DVDs by mail thing, so back when that still existed.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. So, so that was an interesting little cross-pollination. I think there might have been some artistic inspiration. There might even be some shots that are similar, but other than that, it's probably really, really different. So yeah. Fun stuff about that. Yeah.
It's the lore's deep. The influences, like any great piece of work, I suppose.
So let's see, I'm running down the list here. Doodly doodly doo. Oh yeah, so we were talking earlier about the idol business.
Oh yes.
And how it's a machine,
Yeah.
So that let's see. Oh yeah, so there were some interview. Actually, there was even a YouTube video that spent like not maybe 10 minutes just talking about the idol industry, which actually it was a very good summary of the idol industry and how it's a very unique to Japan kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because it is a video that's actually about Perfect Blue, but they talk about the idol industry for a big chunk of it. And they actually intimate that like Satoshi Kon saw part of this and he dramatized it. But there are actually interviews, snippets of Satoshi Kon being like, if somebody thinks that this is my like film critique of the idol industry, then I'd be very embarrassed because I didn't research the industry. I don't have an intimate knowledge of it. I only, absorbed enough of it to portray what I needed to portray in the film. It's not like a takedown of toxic fan culture.
Yeah.
It's a psychological drama, and I think that shows pretty heavily in the work.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because it doesn't come across as like idol industry bad. It should disappear.
No,
it's just like, no,
really.
this girl had an experience. There was a horrible fan, and yeah, it things got weird. That seems to be like my preferred subtitle for Perfect Blue is things got weird.
Oh yeah, in multiple segments, and even when you think it's gotten weird, it can always get weirder. That'd be the other subheading. Things can always get weirder.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But there definitely does seem to be like a shadow in here too, because Mima's transferring over from being an idol to being an actress, which makes you kind of wonder, like maybe she wasn't that good at being an idol. Like she certainly had a fan base, but I guess they were like, well, maybe she has some talent. There's a very short scene in the movie that looks like she had actually done a bit part previously, and that somebody from this double bind TV series that's so popular, which by the way, I got shades of X-Files from it when I was watching it. Like,
yeah, definitely, especially the interrogation room part. Yes.
Yeah, you have like the smart, cool, and collected female detective, and then you have the actually, unfortunately, the male detective doesn't get a lot of lines, but like his design really looked like David Duchovny in the 90s to me. Tall and gangly with the sort of foofy hair, like, I don't know. So they got her cast in this series. So it seems like maybe they were like, yeah, she's not as good as an idol as she might be if we got her to do some acting. So let's see what we can do. And certainly I started feeling too, like maybe this is because she isn't young and hot enough anymore. Is it just that they need to figure out something else for her to do with her life besides being young and cute and innocent and pure? Because there's that whole purity contract. There's never any explicit mention of that. But when she's talking on the phone to her mom in that very early part of the film, she's like, the idol image is suffocating. So I was like, So I wonder, like, was she behaving badly? Is this sort of a headcanon thing? Like, maybe she went out and was drinking, and they're like, "Oh, cheat Mima, seriously?"
Yeah, that's right. She already was
you gotta
one to.
wonder. So.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I can imagine.
So yeah, it just ends up being this whole thing where she wants to branch out and become a new person, but she also has cultivated this identity as this very pure and innocent and loving, I guess, pop idol, and that's the image that she's like struggling to leave behind, but also kind of cherishing it in a weird way. So yeah, identity and all that. I sort of just rambled away on that, but so it definitely doesn't seem to be a critique on the idol industry, but I do think it could be considered kind of a little bit of a sideways critique on the entertainment industry as a whole.
Yeah, I think anybody transitioning from one sort of field in it to another, you could sort of do a similar story like this with it. In a way, you have to change quite a few things around. So yeah, you're right. I don't think it's necessarily idol specific, but yeah, just the entire thing about transitioning, going from one thing to the next. Metamorphosis again. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, entertainment just like chews people up and spits them out, especially when it comes to young talent.
Yes.
Making it or not making it, you have to figure out what you're gonna do with your life. So yeah, it. Okay, I have to ask you this since you're younger than I am. How dated did the treatment of internet stuff
seem? Man, I laughed about that so much. Yes, I was making fun of those like there used to be those old, I think, like 90s like videos that you could get, which is like how to use the internet and stuff, and I just kept making those references like, what's a web page? Something ducks walk on and stuff, like this old American like family that are all learning how to use the internet together and stuff. And it's like, oh, surfing, that sounds pretty cool already and stuff.
Cue like people being like, it's totally radical.
Yeah. So
color block graphics fly across the screen.
Yeah. So I was thinking that whenever they were doing those computer scenes and she was surfing the web and stuff, it was like, yeah, no.
Yeah, this definitely is a product of its time, because even though the internet was like, I think we got AOL at my house, and we're not in a super urban area. Like, we got that when I was like 15, so that's a couple years before this movie came out. And I remember reading in like the late 90s or early 2000s that internet was a little slower to penetrate in certain areas of Japan. And I'm sure now it's completely caught up, probably blown past us, but at the time, yeah, I was like, even at the time, I was like, how does she not know the internet? But then I looked up some stuff. They're like, oh yeah, it hasn't made as much of a popular splash in Japan at the time. So it is pretty funny. And there's only a few cell phones in this movie. It's like her agent has a cell phone. That's like super special.
Oh yeah, I never really paid attention to that, but yeah, that's right. There's multiple situations where you'd be like, just get your phone. Oh wait, maybe they don't. Because I wasn't exactly sure the date, I actually was wondering if... I was surprised that there was internet to begin with, honestly, in this, but... Yeah?
Yeah, so that's pretty funny, because, yeah, it really dates it. But if you can consider it to be like a time capsule
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So obviously, because the internet wasn't as big of a thing at the time, certainly not in Mima's life at that time in Japan... it was light years away from having the kind of influence that it has today, especially social media. Like, that's such a thing now. And so Mima at the time, like, I'm thinking, like, if this were to be made today, Mima would have, like, she'd have an Instagram page and a Facebook. And,
yes, undoubtedly.
Snapchat or whatever. She'd also probably have a website. But also she'd have all these other platforms upon which she could publish content. She'd have a Twitter account, all these things.
Yeah.
And it would be actually kind of interesting if somebody were to modern translate it, because I was thinking, like, if somebody were to start posing as somebody online, and that's happened, like, it's straight up, and catfishing is just a thing. That's not even taking a specific person's identity. That's just making something up.
Yeah.
And people have that all the time, like, oh, somebody took my Twitter name, I have to make up like a whole new Twitter name for myself that has something to do with my name, but whatever. Throws a number in there or whatever. So if this were made today, she'd probably have, her agency would probably have like a whole social media wing, and if they had somebody who was pretending to be her and not actually her, they'd be all over that shit.
Yeah.
So it would be a whole like subplotty type thing.
Yeah, because a lot of the time celebrities have people manage their social media for them as well. So like it would almost be like another self that people see in her that doesn't exist too. Because it's literally not even managed by her, some of those social media accounts possibly, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because you have a lot of celebrities. Like I think that a bunch of them do actually make their own posts, but I suspect a bunch of them just have a publicity person that takes care of it so they don't have to do it. And I could totally understand that, honestly. If I were a public persona, I might have like a secret Twitter so that I could follow and look at things that I wanted to. But in terms of my public Twitter, like, I don't want to have to look at the shitstorm that people would send me just for existing.
Yes.
Because as a public person, like, even though you're probably going to get a lot of positive stuff, you're also going to have a bunch of people that are like QAnoning you for no goddamn reason.
Yep.
Yeah, that stuff's crazy. So yeah, it's kind of just an interesting dimensions. In this case, it's just a web page or it's like a web blog, actually, like proto web blog, that then becomes like this sort of bizarro mirror for Mima, where she can't pull herself away from looking at it. And then is also like, but also is this reality? Because there are pictures on here of me like going shopping in Harajuku or something. So yeah, it's a real trip. And as I was thinking about this before we had this conversation, and I have this in the notes that I sent to you, I remembered a few years ago there was an Instagram model who just very suddenly and kind of with a bit of a furor left Instagram and most social media and posted like a big video about it. And so her name was Essena O'Neill. She was a model from Australia, and this happened in 2015. She apparently like just deleted tons of her pictures, and then she actually recaptioned a bunch of the ones that she left on her Instagram to reflect what was like really behind the shots. So she's like, oh yeah, it took me 100 pictures just to get this one. In this one, I'm wearing a super padded bra. In this one, I hadn't eaten for like a whole day. In this one, I wore a $400 dress, and I did this post only because they paid me, you know, and also gave me this dress.
Yeah.
Or that wasn't, the dress was $400. Is that they gave me the dress to wear and post on Instagram to say what it is. They gave me $400 just for that. And just going to the beach just so that she could show, I'm at the beach. Look at me on Instagram. So she basically got super disillusioned with the whole idea, I guess, of the public persona and monetizing that public persona, and just like blew up and left most of social media. She actually did start up a website, and some people I think might have accused her of faking this whole I'm getting off of social media thing because she was trying to promote the website.
Yeah.
But the website didn't last. It currently is owned by somebody else entirely. Yeah, and she that's what I said. Like, she blew off social media and YouTube, started this website. I think it was called letsbegamechangers.com. But it's now closed and somebody else obviously owns it, and she doesn't appear to do press at all anymore. So she really like just said, fuck this shit, I'm out.
It can be hard because so much of people's identities these days can be tied to
And what I thought was interesting though is that I think that a lot of people kind of understand that there is that curated image, you know, like if you look at a bunch of amazing people on Instagram, you're not thinking like, oh my gosh, their life is effortlessly beautiful. You probably have some, I mean, I'm a lot older. I'm not a 15-year-old girl. I know some things, and I'm a cynical old bitch. So, so I know some things, and I know when I see somebody posting like their perfect Instagram life or their perfect Facebook life, I'm like, yeah, but you're not seeing like when they had like severe gastrointestinal distress because they ate too much Taco Bell, or they're not going to talk about that, or they're not going to be like, oh my gosh, it took me 100 photos to make sure that my stomach looked flat enough. Some people actually do say that, and they think that's like a little bit more honest and healthy, but some people, I don't take all the stuff at face value, and I don't think anybody should, but I think that most people do have a slightly dualistic thing in their brain. They're like, oh, that model's really hot, but they're probably not thinking like, I bet she's that hot all the time. Because photo isn't real life, and it's just, I don't know. So I feel like I understand where she was coming from, and I bet it was a lot of pressure and probably not fun to be like gorgeous on Instagram and paid to be so. But probably to say like that nobody is aware that that it's a bit fake is probably a bit much to say. But you know, if you're a 13-year-old kid, maybe you need to hear that, and maybe you do need to hear it from the person who blows up and leaves Instagram. So that's kind of what it reminded me of. Is like, if this had happened, like, she probably would have been like, well, I gotta completely burn my social media presence to the ground. Thanks a lot, everybody who stalked me and stole my personality.
Yeah. Man, I could have went weirder places if it actually did have like the full access to the internet we had nowadays.
It could get really true. I mean, I mentioned this actually yesterday when we were talking on After Dark. Was this whole like deep fakes type of thing where you have something that is so uncannily like the real person, and even in a video, not just a photo, because photoshopping's been around for quite a while now. Like videos that even look and sound like the people that they're supposed to be imitating, but they're not. So like if you look at them closely enough, you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely not them. But just on a quick glance, you're like, yeah, that's Jennifer Lawrence saying weird stuff or whatever. So I just kept thinking about that for some reason. Is that like nowadays they'd probably be able to put together a whole thing, or it would be like the virtual idol thing. It's just a trip. Tangents. So should we get into heavy spoilers?
So we don't yes,
wrap that sucker up.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Just I'll put a time code, or I'll put an alert up so people can avoid this bit, and sure, go ahead, go all out.
Spoiler protector.
You've been warned.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So yeah, when I watched this and when I've seen some of the discussions shake out about this film, there is that scene. There's referring to the rape scene,
Yep.
and then there's that scene referring to guy gets killed with a screwdriver.
Ah, yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when I had some male friends who I think we watched, you know how it is with your friends. You're like, hey, I got this cool anime thing. Let's watch this anime thing. Some of my guy friends watched this, and almost all of them in that scene just kind of went like, protect their junk. Like, because the dude gets stabbed in the eye, and then he gets stabbed in the junk almost immediately afterwards.
He has a very delayed reaction when he gets stabbed in the eye as well, if you notice.
Yeah, it's a very belabored death. It's like, oh, that was terrible. But I've heard some things, not just about obviously that scene. It's very like people talk about that as regards to this movie. But who actually did that? Because in the scene, it looks like it might actually be Mima. Actually, there's that whole thing of her stabbing him over and over, like overhand stabbing him while he's out of frame, and all you see is her stabbing with a projection of her behind her, and I guess on top of her on the wall.
Yes.
And then she basically wakes up the next day and finds out that this guy has been murdered because paparazzi have showed up at her door. And then after she kind of like looks around in her closet and finds a bag full of bloody clothes.
Yeah.
So in my head, when I first watched this, I'm like, well, she didn't do it. I think I might have thought maybe she did it. But then I was like, after you watch the ending, you're like, oh, no, it probably wasn't her.
Yeah.
But who actually did do it then? If it wasn't her, was it Rumi? Was it Mimania? Which makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, going off, like, if I'm just gonna take the ending, just face value straight up, then I feel like it should be Rumi. Because she has that, and what we're seeing is the delusion of, like, because she's flipped in and out of being, what's her name again? Mima, towards the end. I feel like also because even if we were to believe that Mima has her two personalities, her idol self and the actress self, that she that they did in that recreated television interrogation scene when she was talking to the lady, and they walk out and go, oh, she believes that she's an idol. Neither of those two personalities, I feel, have the sort of personality that would go to a pizza place, get the uniform, steal the uniform, and then go to this guy's place and then kill them in that fashion. I'd see Mima's method of, like, if she was to kill someone in this way, to be a little bit more direct than disguising herself as a pizza person. Just a thought, because I mean, the way they make it seem with Rumi is that it feels like she would have that sort of, she could come up with that sort of plan a bit more. So if I'm thinking of it just by that and at face value, I feel like it only could be Rumi, but there's still room, because obviously what you physically see is obviously Mima, and it doesn't explain that bag scene of what appears in her room. So, but what if that wasn't actually Mima in that scene where she saw the bag in her bedroom and the paparazzi came? What if that was also Rumi in her Mima persona at the time? Because when she says that, because it felt like only the stalker really knew enough about Mima to know where she lived. But it feels like maybe Rumi's more of a public figure where paparazzi would come to her door and tell her about a colleague or some shit, So
I think when I thought about it, I was like, it could have been Mimania, but that doesn't make that much sense.
Who's that? But who's Mimania?
Mimania is the psycho stalker who looks.
Oh, right. No, I don't think it's him. No.
Yeah, it didn't. It, like, in my head, I was like, could it have been him? But then, if you think about the bloody clothes, like, if the bloody clothes are real, let's assume they were actually there and not another, fantasy illusion.
Yep.
Then Rumi would totally have access to her room and could have totally dropped them there. So it makes sense that it could be Rumi. So, anyways.
Yeah.
The other thing with Rumi, speaking of, there's the big sexual assault scene in the club, like, Rumi is just like deadpanning it, and then she bursts into tears. And I think I saw one interpretation of this is that she is still somewhat delusional, and she sees herself kind of as Mima, or like as a potential avatar for pure Mima. So as she's watching this, is she feeling like it's her that this is happening to, and she's upset by that. But before I read that, my headcanon was that she actually was sexually assaulted in her idol days, and she's like reliving it traumatically, and then just breaks down and leaves because it's too real. It's too real for her.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with like anything else in the story, because like being assaulted doesn't turn you into a somebody with dual personalities or anything like that any more than, you know, having a crappy childhood does.
Yeah.
But it just, that was my headcanon, was that something bad happened to Rumi when she was, because they make an intimation that she was an idol.
Oh, okay. I was wondering.
Younger.
Maybe I missed it. I didn't realize that Rumi used to be one.
Yeah, it's a very small line. I think she's talking to the other manager, and he's like, yeah, things are really hard to, you know, Mima really has to branch out. It's hard for idols to make a living nowadays. It's been a long time since Rumi was an idol. And she's like, excuse me for not making it, I guess. So yeah, sorry about that. I should have mentioned that. They mentioned that Rumi's an idol. I think something bad happened to her when she was an idol, and that is why she was upset. Although, you know, she has every reason to be upset. And when they had that scene, actually, it brought back stuff that I'd heard on interviews with film directors and actors and actresses. When they talk about filming any scene that has to do with, you know, intimate sexual content, they tend to be on closed sets, where you can't just have any old person just lumbering in like, hey!
Yeah.
And they're frequently choreographed very closely, because aside from censorship, because you can only show so much and in such a way, they're trying to minimize the potential for people to feel traumatized just by pretending to be traumatized, or pretending to traumatize someone else.
Right.
So as you're watching this scene, like, this seems like the kind of thing they would be like, hey, Rumi, this is going to be kind of intense. Maybe you don't want, maybe any of the people that like, hey, this is going to be really intense. If you don't want to be exposed to this, then don't come on set that day. So yeah, it was pretty bananas when I started thinking about it, especially when I thought about another one where this was in the case of an underage scene, where they actually went so far as to film it standing up instead of lying down, and also just had the director give her facial cues like, okay, now look like you've tasted something sour. Okay, now squeeze your eyes shut. It was like, it was very disconnected from actual sexual things.
I see.
Yeah, it was a real trip. And also, I imagine probably also having some counseling there, just to be there, just in case somebody needs to talk to somebody. And Mima gets none of that at all. And I think that's because it's a Hollywood interpretation. They're trying to maximize the drama. But they're just like, so you just pretended to have something horribly traumatic happen to you. Want to eat dinner?
Yeah. And then she keeps up a brave face, you know, for all it's worth. But I think there might be some credence to the whole Rumi being traumatized thing, because they also go for a photo shoot later on, and I'm wondering, like, at least that was my perception, was that you typically get chaperoned by like somebody from like a talent agency to make sure like the photographer doesn't go too far, and like certain things are not allowed. So I did find it very weird how explicit her photo shoot ended up being in the later scenes. So I'm thinking that maybe that's why Rumi wasn't there, because maybe she couldn't take it after that first scene. Just a thought.
Yeah. That's I hadn't even given that a whole lot of thought, but yeah, she seems like she wanted to be there to be very protective of her. But it seems like as her image was consistently changing more and more to this like mature, I don't want to say edgy, but like an actress that has done mature content. That doesn't sound right either, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Yes, I know.
As she's changing her image, Rumi is less protective of her, and that could be because there's this whole thing of like, well, she's also harboring the idea that this isn't the real Mima, and that she's actually the real Mima somewhere inside. So yeah, I hadn't given that a whole lot of thought, but yeah, you'd think that she'd want to be there to really like shepherd her through
exactly.
all these
I was like, why is nobody stopping this photographer if he has that? Because like somebody remarks that this photographer has a tendency to make them do this. I was like, wait, usually the talent agency would protect it. No, okay, this happens.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
yeah, that's an interesting part too. I hadn't given a whole lot of thought to. But yeah, it's definitely, aside from that being a very like dramatized for Hollywood type of thing, the mental health aspect of Rumi is also very Hollywood. Like, she has multiple dissociative personality disorder, or so it's implied,
Yeah.
but apparently functions absolutely fine most of the time, and yet is still basically fake blogging as Mima, potentially killing people.
Yeah.
Contacting another fan to like work things around so that horrible things will happen to the people who have wronged the real Mima or wronged her pure reputation. So it seems kind of odd that she's just like, and yeah, I'm totally functional aside from that until the very end.
Her mental health issue is like the kind of Hollywood superpower version where it's not a disability but allows her to do things inhumanly efficiently. Like
yeah, she's like it's Hollywoodized. Like you can be relatively normal and still have mental health issues, but this particular kind of thing seems to be very much dramatized for the thing, and it doesn't seem realistic, but I guess shrug. And then of course this is actually one of the things I saw in that review that said that they didn't particularly care for Perfect Blue as compared to Satoshi Kon's other works, was that in the very end, where Mima is visiting Rumi in the mental institution, you get the impression, because she suffered some pretty bad injuries and she managed to live, and so did Rumi, so it's probably been months at this point.
Yeah.
And her hair is longer too, so you can kind of get like there's been a passage of time.
And the sunglasses on it makes it feel like she's made it more as like as an actress by this point, so it could be even longer still.
It could be years even. It's kind of hard to.
She's got a car. She's got a car now. I don't think she had it.
Yeah, you know, I never thought about that. But like, is this a couple of years later where?
Yeah, I think she's doing really well for herself by this point as an actress or something.
Yes, because as she's leaving, a nurse whispers to another nurse, like, "I think that was Mima Kirigoi," and she's like, "No way would she be here." And she's like, "It's probably just a lookalike," and that's just like a setup for the final line of the film. But like, it's been a while. And I think it would have been maybe slightly better if they had maybe established more of a time passing, or maybe had just left it with a slightly more ambiguous but still positive ending. But instead you just get this mood whiplash of, you know, almost getting hit by a truck at probably like 4 a.m, and just lying on the asphalt looking at the skyline, to this overly sunlit psychiatric hospital where Rumi's just walking around like talking to herself, and Mima's like, "Well, I know I'm not going to ever talk to the actual Rumi personality again, but thanks to her I am who I am today." And then she leaves, and it's just this very like, what?
Yeah.
Weren't you just babbling to yourself and hallucinating like 5 minutes ago?
Yeah, and she gives this very knowing look to the rear mirror, but kind of to the camera as well, to go like, "Yep, I'm real." Feels like I guess the Looney Tunes ending. Yeah.
The music's this really like 90s.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you take? What do you take from all that? Like, what do you believe is real then? What's your preferred sort of way to take it?
Like my preferred ending takeaway?
Yeah. What's your takeaway from it? Yeah.
So for the whole thing, I mean, I really like the film in its general entirety thing. Like, I heard somebody summarize it really, really shortly as like a murder mystery with interesting visuals. And I'm like, a little bit, but mostly it's bigger than that. It's that whole, you know, it's a person's own perceived notion of who they are changing, and also pressure kind of making weird things happen in your brain. And I thought that was way more interesting than just who done it, with neat visuals, because I love the virtual Mima, the idol dressed up version of Mima that shows up and just like taunts her like, "You're fucking up your life."
yeah, and she starts to appear more frequently. Like, I think the one that really got me is when she was in the recording studio. That was like, whoa. You know, when the two were doing a radio, her previous colleagues.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was one of my favorite scene bits, because it's her with Rei and Yukiko, the old members of Cham that she used to sing with, and then virtual Mima's sitting there, and she freaks out, and then sees virtual Mima running down the hall, and she's like just skipping airily by everybody, and no one else sees her. And meanwhile, it's actually kind of reflective in a weird way of the the reverse of what happens at the end, where you have Rumi chasing after Mima, and it's this very like, you see Mima and she's just like grittily running full bore and falling over, and just watching this sort of like unreal figure just prance away from her like, haha, fuck you.
Yeah, I know. She's got
And I
amazing
love,
reflexes and abilities. You can jump from lamppost to lamppost.
oh yeah, and I thought about that too. Like at the very, very end, when you have the virtual Mima, who is supposed to be just actual Rumi, just following her and just airily alighting on a building that Mima just like jumped 20 feet to get to, and like slams into the roof and rolls off, and obviously she's got to be injured at that point. So I'm wondering, like, I kind of halfway wonder if that whole thing, did Rumi just amazingly managed to get through all of that, or did she hallucinate the whole thing until Rumi actually got to ground level and just found her at ground level? I don't know. I'm not really sure, but I do love that trippy bit where she shows up at the recording studio with the old bandmates, and then there's that chase scene. I just can't get enough of that like unreal taunting personality just skipping away, and I'm like, big mood.
And she also has this kind of glowing effect to her too that really kind of enhances it as well.
Yes, so she's got that angelic kind of glow effect around her. It's so trippy. I don't know. I did like the visuals a lot for this, obviously. So yeah, it really spoke to me, and that's always been one of my favorite things fictionally as well, is the person talking to you who's you but not you, if that makes much sense. Because we all kind of talk to ourselves in a weird way in our own heads, even if you don't do it out loud. I know some people are like, oh, I talk to myself all the time, and some people are like, oh my gosh, that's so scary and weird. I'm like, nah, but if you're alone, you got to bounce your ideas off somebody, and I suppose you're the only person there. So
like, no one has a literal inner monologue, but you have something like that. Yeah.
So in general, I'd say, yeah, the takeaway is just like, it's an interesting tale of somebody's weird, not based in real life thing, but like the interplay between fiction and nonfiction reality, and the perceived reality, which isn't quite in sync with everybody else's, and it's just neat. Like, I just really like it, and it's a trippy story, so dig it. I dig it. And yeah, I guess the biggest thing is, try to know who you are.
Moral. That's a moral.
And, yeah, like the moral of the story is try to know who you are and be true to yourself. Yay! Believe in your dreams.
Just rainbows. Woo.
Rainbows. I mean, yeah, I think my biggest thing is that, yeah, it's sort of that, like, try to remain grounded in yourself. And I mean, this kind of goes, and this is sort of running back again, not against the wrap-up vibe, which is that whole mental health in Japan. It doesn't seem like it's doing so good. I mean, this is obviously, again, Hollywood version, but if somebody starts, and I mentioned this actually way back when I was talking to Rio on After Dark, a couple years probably ago at this point, maybe a year and a half ago, about I Am a Hero, I think, the manga.
That's the zombie apocalypse one. Yeah.
And how in the very, very beginning, and I don't think so much as the story goes on, but in the very, very beginning, the protagonist almost definitely has some kind of hallucinatory disorder, but he's just like gritting his teeth and getting through it rather than seeking actual help. And then the zombie apocalypse happens, and that's not real. That's the least of your worries, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose.
But I was thinking of, and there's lots of other stuff dripped and drabbed throughout anime where it seems like it's not a thing that if your brain starts playing tricks on you and you think that maybe it's playing tricks on you, that you go to a mental health professional. It seems very much just kind of like, yeah, just suck it up and keep moving. We haven't got time for this.
It could be the social stigma around it or something,
And I think there is certainly a social stigma thing around it, but and obviously this is not like an example of, oh, this is the way mental health really works in Japan. But it does kind of bring up that question, like, wait, but is this a problem? Should we be worried about this? So, yeah, trippy.
Oh, I just thought of one more thing. Actually, that just came up to mind. Actually, if Rumi is the killer, it would explain why she said, "Don't bother reporting this to the police." Just another thought.
It would explain why what?
It would explain why when I keep forgetting the main character's name. Mima. Oh, I keep saying Mami. Mima
Mimanya.
when she brings up with Rumi about the stalker and stuff, and said, "Hey, sure," or the attack, like we should bring this up to the police. Rumi immediately was like, "Nah, we probably shouldn't report it to the police." So that explains that. Actually, just realized.
Yeah, there's definitely that whole like, this was a totally like a letter bomb showed up, but we won't mention it to the police. I'm like, seriously? Like, is this just a time thing?
Yeah.
I wonder if it happened now, if people would be taking it more seriously. But yeah, there is a lot of that whole sweeping it under the rug sort of idea, and I'm like, no, that's
so
bad.
about image and saving face more than it is actually addressing any issue. It's not even addressing the issue; it's acknowledging the issue. So.
Yeah, no, that definitely kind of plays into that too. So yeah. Anyway, so one of my favorite movies was So Thrilled It Came to Blu-ray.
I get the slight vibe you would give it a download now if this was an Anime Pulse review. Am I mistaken?
I would.
Yes.
I would. But like you said earlier, like there are some things that you would recommend or that you really like, but you wouldn't necessarily recommend to other people. Perfect Blue, I would probably put slightly behind some other stuff in terms of just recommending it to other people willy-nilly, because it does have that, it's simulated, but it is kind of a weirdly graphic sexual assault scene. And it also has a bunch of super stabby ultra violence in it too. I'm all in, but I know some people would be like, ooh, so I might recommend something like Tokyo Godfathers, because Tokyo Godfathers is just really heartwarming and nice.
Yes.
While also playing with a little bit of the style that Satoshi Kon has without being super duper edgy and crazy. So
it's good that he could do both, that he could go one or the other. He's not just a one trick pony that can only do that's pretty good.
Indeed.
Okay. So is there anything else you want to say about that in particular, or is that pretty much it?
No, I don't think so. And it's getting close to dinner time, so I should probably skedaddle.
Okay, so before we wrap up, do you want to mention like what you do, your show, and you want to plug any social media stuff? Social media stuff.
For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I go by the handle InnocuousBlonde. I am co-host to Anime Pulse After Dark, along with RioA 24/7. I am I'm located. I can be contacted at the my host email, which is blonde BLONDE at anime-pulse.com, and also I am on Twitter at InnocuousBlonde. Fun stuff. So far we have a lot of fun just poking around and posting neat things, and I love talking about weird adult stuff with my pal Rio.
Yeah, it's a hoot. It's a good show. Check it out if you have the time. Okay. Well, you've been
not for everybody. It's pretty explicit, but if you're down to watch, to listen to rather, funny breakdowns of Japanese cartoon porn, then go for it.
Yes, I mean the name is there for a reason. It is what it says in the tin. So
I've got a knock at the door now.
Okay, right. Well, okay, we'll wrap up now. You've been a great guest. Thank you very much. And I guess until next time, I was told to say this by Al Gazero. Don't cross the streams. What a strange.
Don't cross the streams.
Yeah, that's what he said. Don't cross the street. He said that should be the sign off. Anyway, see you later then.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Take care. Have a good night.
Ta-ta.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
See ya.